Alright, well, it was really weird because I don't like to talk in front of people, like ever. And a couple of Sundays ago, I was in worship and I just couldn't focus, and that's not me. Like, obviously, I do worship, like, all the time, and I'm always into it. And it was just like that one time, like, I'd seen one sentence, and then, like, 2 minutes later, I'd be staring at a light, and I never realized it. You know, it was like one of those days, and that never happens to me. And at the end of the service, like, I sat down and I kept hearing the word distractions. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then, like, Pastor Scott put up this verse, and I don't remember what it was, but it pretty much said, I am who I am, and I confirm what I want in you. And it was pretty much my confirmation, like, shut up and go tell Stephen you're preaching. So I went up and I told him that I had to learn about distractions, and he told me that the night before, God told him the same thing. But he didn't know when, so it's tonight, and it worked out because Stephen's not going to be here. But I'm speaking about distractions. And, you know, everyone has distractions in their life, whatever it may be, but sometimes the distractions get to be so much that you take your eye off of what you really should have it on. Like, let's say, like, in sports, you know, when you're playing volleyball, someone will be, like, whispering to you and talking while you're trying to play. I'm using volleyball because that's what I play. And all of a sudden you get hit in the face with the volleyball because you weren't paying attention and you're distracted. Well, that's what Satan likes to do with us. You know, we can be all about God one minute, and then something happens and our grandma dies, or our uncle gets hit with cancer, or something, and you're just like, God, why did you do this? And you get distracted because Satan put something in your path that's going to take you off of God. And automatically you're just like, you know, God did this. But you were just all about God a second ago. And everyone forgets that sometimes it's not God who does it. It's never God. You know, sometimes God does the good things. Yeah, all the time he does. But when the bad things happen, it's not God at all. And maybe it happens because God's putting us through a test. And we need to stay strong, like Job did. His whole family died. And in the end, it came back more prosperous. But, you know, God wants us to pay attention to him. But Satan puts distractions in our way to get our eyes off of God. And sometimes, like I said, we always like to blame God. But God says in 1 Corinthians 7:35, and this I say for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, and that you may serve the Lord without distraction. Right there, he says, you know, that's not him putting distractions in your way, but he's giving you these things, these good things in your life that happen, it's so that you may not be distracted. So, you know, we like to blame God. That's not him doing it. You know, he wants us to be not distracted. He wants us to have our eyes focused on God. And a lot of things that could be a distraction, one of the huge ones is relationships. Whether it be with a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Because at one point, there's always that one person that you like, and you like them so much that you just want to take your eyes off of everything and focus on them. And you forget about God and you put him in the background. And no matter what it may be, maybe, you know, none of us are married, obviously, I hope not. But in your marriage too, you keep your eyes off of God, and you're trying to focus on stuff and fix things without putting God in it, it's going to crumble. Just like a relationship with a friend. Maybe you just have a huge fight going on with a friend, and instead you just hope they never talk to you again instead of putting them in God's prayer. And that's, you know, relationships, when you put God out of it, no matter what it is, they're never going to last. They're going to crumble. You really need God in it. You can't be distracted. With addictions, whatever it may be, you know, alcohol, cigarettes, maybe you're not addicted to it, but you like to use it anyways. What about pornography? You know, a lot of people do. I'm not saying people in here do. But you have friends who do. You know, you can be walking down the hall in your school, and you can be distracted on everything, getting to the next class, worrying about whether you're going to make it on time, if your homework is done. And you walk past some kid who's been having the worst time of their life that week, and it's all over their face. But you're too distracted on something else to even tell them what God has sent you to do. You can't be distracted. You have to keep your eyes on God. And money, Money's a huge thing. You get $10 and it goes to your pocket. You may spend it at McDonald's on some new nail polish, some new fancy socks, whatever. You know, whatever you want to buy it on. But instead of, doing that, what if you threw it for speed of light? Or they often plate your 10% that you never do. I had that problem too for 2 years. I never gave my 10% and I always wondered why I had no money. It's, money is a huge distraction. Because not only, everyone says money is sin. And yeah, if you use it the wrong way. But it can be a distraction too. Because depending on how you use it, someone has more money than you, you're distracted because you want to have more money than them. Or you don't have money, so you're distracted because you go and try to get money for something you don't even need. And instead, over in this area, you should have been there because God wanted you to go there, but you were distracted. And we get distracted by many things, even things that are good, we get distracted by. Luke 10:40-42. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me. And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. Martha and Mary, they were sisters, and Jesus entered the town and came to their house. And Martha was so busy with serving, like the verse says, that she was going all out, trying to get these people who came in to listen to Jesus and his message. She didn't even hear Jesus. She was more worried about, she didn't have someone to help her serve. And Mary knew it was right, and she listened to God. And sometimes we forget to listen to God. Instead, we're more worried about doing the things that we shouldn't be doing. Like Martha, she should have sat down and listened to God. Every now and then, maybe she could have served, but her eyes were on the wrong thing. And in the end, Jesus told her Mary had what was right. And that was, obviously, to listen to God's word. David and Bathsheba. We all know that story, hopefully. But in 2 Samuel 11-12, it talks about David and Bathsheba and how he's distracted. David saw this gorgeous woman who was bathing on a rooftop, and he wanted her to be his wife. And found out she was married to one of the soldiers, and he killed the man. He put him in front of the war where it was the hottest and backed away and the man died. And he took Bathsheba as his own. But before then, he went in with Bathsheba and she was pregnant before he even married her. And God frowned upon that. And because of that, that was a sin. And in the end, the son that he had died. And it wasn't God's fault that the son died. But David sinned. And when sin enters and you let sin dwell there, God's not going to be there because you're letting sin in. And that's just, after that happened, God was gone. He was there, but David wasn't allowing him in at that point. And his son died. And distractions, Bathsheba was David's distraction. What are our distractions? Really think about it. Is it music? Are you too involved in your music? Is it your schoolwork? Everyone tells you should do your schoolwork, but are you too involved in it to even take a break and listen to what God says? What about friends or your hang-out times, or you didn't want to come to youth group tonight because you had something else planned and you figured maybe missing this night wouldn't be a big deal? Was that your distraction? Distractions can be deadly because maybe it's something good, maybe it's something bad. When you have a distraction in your way, sin enters in. And you leave God out, and you can't expect for something prosperous to happen. In 1 Corinthians 10:13, it talks about temptation and how that's not of God. And sometimes there's a distraction put in our way by God, but it's a test for us. Because God puts us through tests to see, Noah with the ark. He was the only one in his family who believed in God. Everyone else was distracted, making fun of him or doing their own thing. They didn't believe it would happen, but Noah kept his eye on God, even though he was put through that test. And like I said earlier with Job, the same thing happened with him. Is that going on with you in your life? Are you being distracted with your schoolwork? It's just become so much that even though you get it done and you have 2 hours left in the day, You're just so tired, so you go to bed early instead of calling back that one friend you promised you'd call back, and they're struggling because you're too tired. What about your work? What if you're too consumed in your work and you need more hours because you want more money? And instead of spending time with the people you need to spend it with, or spending it even with God, you go and do different things. In 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation is overtaking you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. So no matter what you go through, even though you think it may be hard, God's always going to provide a way out. No matter what it is. It's just whether or not you're going to stick with it. And will trust that God will bring you out of it. It could be, whatever it is. It could be you're really mad at your parents for grounding you, and you just want to feel like you want to run away or something, because everyone's gone through that, whether they're 5 or 13. In the end, maybe God's just doing it to bring your parents' relationship closer with you. Are you too busy being angry at them? What is God calling you to? Are you listening to that? Are you listening to what God has for you? Or are you too distracted? It took me a while to think about this. I had a whole sermon written, and yesterday God decided I needed a different one. But, in the end, my distractions, I let go of them, and God took over. It's up to you to decide what you need to do. It's up to you whether you're going to keep going on with these distractions, even if you think it's not you who's letting it go on, or if you just decide that maybe it's time for God to take over. In the end, God always has a way out for you. And all you have to do is ask. Even if it's you don't want to worship today, so you decide to talk to your neighbor, or you don't want to listen to the sermon, so you start texting someone. What if that sermon was for you, and because you decided you got too bored, you decided, hey, I don't want to hear it, and then all of a sudden you missed something important. Everyone needs to listen to what God says, and just let go of the distraction. That's all I got.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Veronica?
Just show us our way through what this week, God, this our whole life, that you would just be evident, God, even when it seems like you're not. And I ask that you would help us keep our distractions where we can see them and then keep them out of our way, and that we'd be strong enough to get out of them. In your name I ask, amen.
And so I've gone through my life, from everything's silent and just gosh, it's so deafening. Why is that person silent? Why aren't you listening to me? But in the end, God is listening. So here's the song. Most of you heard it someday. Are you listening to anything that I say? 'Cause I've been praying. How many prayers can I pray? I'm still waiting. Maybe you'll show up today. I know you're here, but I can't feel you. And if you're speaking, I can't hear you. How much longer will this last? So okay, answer me with silence. It's okay if you don't say a word. You're testing me to trust you'll be faithful in this quiet. So okay, answer me with silence. Why do I question your intentions for me when your affection is a proven legacy? Oh, Father, Father, turn my fears into peace. I know your love will never leave. I know you want what's best for me. So okay, answer me with silence. It's okay if you don't say a word. You're testing me to trust you'll be faithful in this quiet. So okay, answer me with silence. You're testing me to trust you'll be faithful in this quiet. Oh, it's okay if you answer me with silence, and it's okay if you don't say a word, 'cause you're